Hello you guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing my December reading wrap up. So I'm going to talk about all 8 books that I read in December. December was a pretty good reading month. I found some books that I really liked. I recently put up a video tier ranking all of the books that I read in 2023. If you wanted to check that out, then you can see the books that I'm going to talk about today, but also all of the books that I read all throughout the year. So it's a really cool wrap-up video. But today I'm going to do a little bit of a deeper dive into those last 8 books that I read in the year. I did want to just chat a little bit at the beginning about some books that I picked up at the bookstore at Chapters at the beginning of the year. I got a couple of gift cards for Indigo, and I went ahead and picked some books up that I've been really wanting, and I thought I would just share the books I picked up first before getting into the December wrap-up. But actually, first, you guys, I wanted to show you something really cool and cute that I found at a free little library at some point in December. I think it might have been right around Christmas. And it is this bookmark. And it's a cute little crocheted heart bookmark. So I'm pretty obsessed with free little libraries, and I stop at them whenever I see one. And I stopped at this one, and there were these bookmarks in a little Ziploc bag, and they had a little note with them as well. And it turns out there's this Facebook group, and I'm going to pull it up with you guys. Just give me a second. So, it is called Random Acts of Crochet Kindness Canada. So, it is this group. I think it's created by the person who made all of the crochet stuff. It's not always bookmarks. But it looks like multiple people make the crochet things, and then the idea is the people who make them, they just leave them in random spots, and then it's just like a nice random act of kindness for people who find them. And then when people find them, they post to this page, usually with a picture and like a little thank you to whoever made it. So I found those, and I checked out the page, and yeah, it's just super cute and it's fun. So this is what I got. It might make some nice noises. bookmarks look really, really cute in books, where the heart will just sort of dangle. So just wanted to share that with you guys. But now onto the books that I picked up with my gift cards. So the first one I got is a physical copy of a book that I love, love, love. And that is Know My Name by Chanel Miller. So I've already talked about this book on my channel, but it is a memoir by Chanel Miller. Is a survivor of a big sexual assault case. I believe it's called the Stanford sexual assault case, and this is her memoir discussing the event and everything that happened after it happened. And it is definitely one of my favorite books I've ever read. And I highly recommend reading it if you haven't yet, unless you are sensitive to the topics that are in here. So I would check out trigger warnings first, but Chanel Miller's writing is just incredible, and she's clearly very intelligent and she's very articulate. This book is very engaging, but it's also super, super important, and this was one of my top reads of the year and one of my favorite books in general. So I really wanted a physical copy, and that's why I got this one. Very happy to have this now. I think I might also reread it and annotate it at some point. The next book I got is the book that I'm actually currently reading. So I will talk about this in more detail in my next wrap-up video in early February. And that is Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. This is book 2 in a series. What is the series called? I don't remember what the series is called, and I can't find it. But the first book in this series is called Divine Rivals. It's a fantasy series, and Divine Rivals is also actually one of my top reads of 2023, and it's definitely up there for, it might be my favorite fantasy book that I've read so far. If not, it's second or third. But I feel like it's probably number 1 right now in my mind. And it has quite a bit of romance in it, but also a lot of like politics and magic. This book came out at the end of the year, and I wanted to get right to reading it, so I started reading it on my Kindle, and that's where I'm reading it now, but I wanted a physical copy to have, and these books are very pretty as well, so part of the reason I like having a physical copy. And I'm about 50% through, and I will talk about it in detail, like I said, in my next wrap-up. But so far, I am really enjoying it, almost as much as the first one. We'll see how the second half is, but right now it feels like 4 stars to me. Divine Rivals, the first one, was 5 stars for me, so we'll see. But I love this world. I love the romance in this series. And so I got that book, and last I got the final 2 books in the Magnolia Park series. So that is Magnolia Park's The Long Way Home, and Daisy Hates The Great Undoing. I would like to finish this series soon, the next couple of months. I've already read the first 2, so next I just need to read these 2, and then I'll be done. I really loved the first book in this series, Magnolia Parks. I did not really like the second book, called Daisy Hates. Now, the third book, so the next one that I'll be reading, goes back to Magnolia Parks. So I'm hopeful that I will enjoy this one, because I liked the first one so much, and those characters. But I'm a little worried about it, because I'm just concerned that I will only like the first book. These books are very floppy, which is awesome. But honestly, I cannot read physical books these days very well. I really prefer my Kindle. I can read way faster, and I feel more motivated because of the progress bar that it shows you. Or not a bar, but it constantly tells you your progress and your percentage, what percentage you are through the book. So but yeah, these would be good ones to read They're very floppy and comfortable. Alright, so those are the books that I got recently at the start of the year. I also have one ordered, which is The Storied Life of AJ Fikry, which I will be talking about today. That's a book that I loved and was also a top read of the year for me. So that one is ordered and it should be here in a few days. But let's get into all the books I read in December. I'm gonna open up Goodreads here. So I read 8 books. The first book I read, I do not have a physical copy of. I read it on my Kindle, and I'm going to grab that. And actually, I want to show you guys a Christmas present I got. I got this really beautiful Kindle case. It is embroidered with all of these wildflowers. Purple is my favorite color, and I liked how much purple was in this. I loved the colors, and I got this on Etsy. Well, I got it for Christmas, but that's where it's from. It will help keep my Kindle safe when I am taking it places. I often take my Kindle to the gym. I take it to cafes once in a while, but this will help protect the screen when I'm throwing it in my gym bag or purse. So So, I am going to pull up the first book I read in December, and that was the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which is the new Hunger Games book. I think it came out a couple of years ago, but a lot of people had read it this year because of the movie that came out near the end of the year with the same title. And this book is a prequel to the Hunger Games series, and it is about President Snow. So President Snow is like the evil character in the Hunger Games, and this story follows him when he was young, when he was like 19, 20, and you follow sort of his journey into becoming president. So a lot of it is about sort of what it means to be evil. So this book, I thought was going to be quite sympathetic to him as a character and kind of show what made him the way he was, but it was more about, to me it felt more about how he is just inherently evil. He's just a very bad person, and you don't so much get into why, but you follow him on this journey where he falls in love with a girl, and you almost see him become a good person, and through this girl, but it does not work out as you would hope. I'll just say that. Basically, it, to me, felt like a showcase of somebody being so far removed from understanding people in society and more being so close to figuring it out, but ultimately failing. So it's a very cool story. It's very unique and interesting, and I liked the beginning of this book a lot, and I enjoyed the ending, but the middle part of it I just found too long and I got bored. It felt too slow and just too long. So I overall enjoyed it, but I think I only gave it 3 stars on Goodreads, and I just didn't love it. Liked it, but didn't love it. And I was still happily surprised, though, because I haven't read the Hunger Games books themselves since I was in middle school. I read them when they were super popular, and I loved them. But because it had been so long, I didn't know if I would still like Suzanne Collins' writing. But I did. And, wasn't obsessed with this book. But, and I might reread The Hunger Games at some point. But I don't plan to super soon. But yeah, I did enjoy this. I, by the way, then watched the movie, and I really didn't like that. Let me know if you watched it and what you thought, but I found that the movie actually was more sympathetic towards Snow as a character, and just the way that he was written, and the actor, to me, made me like him more. So otherwise I didn't really like the movie. I don't know, I just couldn't really get into it. I liked the actor that played President Snow, but as far as being an interesting story like the book is, it just wasn't to me. It almost felt like 2 different stories. So, anyway, that was my first read of December, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Now, the second book that I read was Dear Edward by Anne Napolitano. And this was a very surprising favorite that I found in December. This actually made like the top tier in my tier ranking video for books I read in the year. And the cool thing is, I did not plan on reading this. I found it in a free little library just at the beginning of December, and I recognized the author because she wrote a very popular literary fiction called Hello Beautiful, which I haven't read yet, but now I do plan on reading it. And that is because I really, really loved this one. So, this book is also literary fiction, and it is about a plane crash that happens, and there's only one survivor of the crash, and that is a boy named Edward. And his whole family, his parents and his brother, were on the plane, but they all died. He was the only survivor. Literally everyone else on the plane died. So it follows him. It follows him following the crash and just all of the stuff that he is dealing with mentally. And it also follows him as he makes a new friend and is sort of getting closer with his aunt and uncle who took him in following the crash and raised him. He's like 12, I believe, when the crash happens. And it also flashes back to the crash and the flight, and it actually follows a few other characters as well who were on the plane, including the rest of Edward's family. So I thought that this was a really interesting premise and story. I loved her writing, and I was engaged the entire time. I really always wanted to be reading this book. I always looked forward to picking it back up at the end of the day and reading more. I loved the characters, pretty much all of them. I really liked Edward and his friend that he makes, and it's just very, very, very well done, and not super plot heavy, more character driven, but I love that. And if I like the characters, I love that. And it also has a super satisfying, good ending, which I loved as well. It is definitely sad a lot of times throughout the book, but in like the best way. It's very emotional, but it's still heartwarming at the same time, especially by the end of it. So, Dear Edward by Ann Napolitano. Highly recommend you checking this out. I think it's well loved, but it is a bit older. I definitely plan on reading her newer book, Hello Beautiful, that I think came out in 2023, and I'm very excited to do so. Now, the next book that I read was a romance, just a straight up romance novel. I don't have a copy of it, but it is called Caught Up by Liz Tomford, probably Tomford, and This is a sports romance. The male main character is a Major League Baseball player, and he falls in love with his nanny. Now, I talked about this quite at length in my tier ranking video, and I explain why I really did not like this book. I actually pretty much hated it. It was so, it's not the kind of romance for me personally. It is quite unrealistic in terms of what happens. It's very optimistic, and everything works out very smoothly, like unrealistically. And it is also super repetitive. So I guess part of it was the writing, because it was just way too repetitive. But also, I just think that this kind of romance novel isn't for me personally. I think I need something a little bit more serious, more realistic, more maybe darker. Also, I was kind of excited to read a sports romance, because I've never read one, and I really enjoy sports, played sports a lot, and enjoy watching sports, find it interesting, but I didn't quite realize that it's not heavy on sports at all. It's just sort of the backdrop to the romance story. So, definitely not a book for me. I think I rated it 2 stars, and I don't plan on reading any other books like that or in that series, because it is like a series of interconnected standalone books. So yeah, unfortunately that one was not a hit for me. That was Caught Up. And next I read, actually I listened to this, and it is Sidney Crosby, The Rookie Year. Now, this is I guess you would call it a memoir of Sidney Crosby, who is one of the best NHL players. He is from Nova Scotia, which is where I'm from, and he's probably my favorite hockey player, and I really care about him and his journey, especially since he's from Nova Scotia. And so I saw this audiobook on Audible, and it was free. It was only like 5 hours long, I think, so it was very quick. I listened to it at the gym mostly, and it was a really good listen. And if you're interested at all in Sidney Crosby, definitely recommend it. It interviews various people as well, so it's less like an audiobook and more like a podcast or documentary. It's not just Sidney Crosby telling his story, and this book is not in physical form either. It's just in the form of an audiobook. So but I really loved it. I learned more about him, and it's focused on his rookie year, and yeah, you learn some new stuff that he's never really talked about before, but it still doesn't give you that much, because he is a very private person, and I think he wants to keep it that way. But definitely recommend that. It's a good little listen. And next, I read another book by the author Gabriel Zevin, and this one is called The Storied Life of AJ Fikry. So I read the book Tomorrow, Tomorrow, and Tomorrow by Gabriel Zevin near the end of 2023 as well. I think I read it in November, and I loved that book so much, and that was a top read of the year for me. So I wanted to read another book from her, and I saw some people reading this one, which is a literary fiction. It is about actually, I'm going to read the Goodreads synopsis. This description is quite long, but it says, on the faded Island Books sign hanging over the porch of the Victorian cottage is the motto, no man is an island, every book is a world. AJ Fikry, the irascible owner, is about to discover just what that truly means. AJ Fikry's life is not at all what he expected it to be. His wife has died, his bookstore is experiencing the worst sales in its history, and now his prized possession, a rare collection of Poe poems, has been stolen. Slowly but surely, he is isolating himself from all the people of Alice Island, from Lambias, the well-intentioned police officer who's always felt kindly towards Fikry, from Ismay, his sister-in-law, who is hell-bent on saving him from his dreary self, from Amelia, the lovely and idealistic, if eccentric, nightly press sales rep who keeps on taking the ferry over to Alice Island, refusing to be deterred by AJ's bad attitude. Even the books in his store have stopped holding pleasure for him. These days, AJ can only see them as a sign of a world that is changing too rapidly. And then a mysterious package appears at the bookstore. It's a small package, but large in weight. It's that unexpected arrival that gives AJ Fikry the opportunity to make his life over, the ability to see everything anew. It doesn't take long for the locals to notice the change overcoming AJ, or for that determined sales rep Amelia to see her curmudgeonly client in a new light, or for the wisdom of all those books to become again the lifeblood of AJ Fikry's world, or for everything to twist again into a version of his life that he didn't see coming. As surprising as it is moving, the storied life of AJ Fikry is an unforgettable tale of transformation and second chances, an irresistible affirmation of why we read and why we love. It's a little bit difficult to explain what happens in the book. It is not super plot heavy, and that's it. I'd say if you've read Tomorrow, Tomorrow, and Tomorrow, and you liked it, I am betting that you will like this one as well. It also does a really good job at making you care about relationships between different characters, and it feels very heartwarming, and it is a pretty short book. I think it is 200 pages or so, and I just cannot recommend this book enough. It is very, very sweet, and just one of those books that makes you feel very, very connected to it. So that was AJ Fikry. Like I said in the beginning, I have this one ordered. I definitely want a copy of it, and it either is a movie or it's going to be a movie, so I will be watching that too. Next, I read a graphic novel called The Exile. This is a Outlander graphic novel by Diana Gabaldon. She is the author of the entire Outlander series. I did not have super high expectations for this book because when you go on Goodreads and look at this book, the reviews are really, really bad. People do not like this book in general, and the biggest complaint, I think, is that I think I remember people not liking the images or the writing, and I also did not like either of those things. I found the dialogue really weird, and it's the only way I can describe it, and I still read it all, and I read it in one night, and if you've watched the show, it's quite consistent with like the first episode of the show, so it made me feel nostalgic for that. But I did not like the writing, and I didn't like the images either. It's not that they're bad, but they are quite inconsistent throughout the book, and I found it hard to keep track of who was who. But if you're very into Outlander, I would say check it out, but I don't think you have to read it. And now we're down to the last two books that I read in December. The first one was called Lie With Me, and the author is Philippe Besson. I think that he is French, so it might be pronounced Philippe. I'm going to read the description for this book as well. The award-winning best-selling French novel by Philippe Besson about an affair between two teenage boys in 1984 France, translated with subtle beauty and haunting lyricism by the iconic and internationally acclaimed actress/writer Molly Ringwald, which I will say was very interesting. I really like Molly Ringwald. We drive at high speed along back roads through woods, vineyards, and oat fields. The bike smells like gasoline and makes a lot of noise, and sometimes I'm frightened when the wheels slip on the gravel on the dirt road. But the only thing that matters is that I'm holding on to him outside. Just outside a hotel in Bordeaux, Philippe chances upon a young man who bears a striking resemblance to his first love. What follows is a look back at the relationship he's never forgotten, a hidden affair with a gorgeous boy named Thomas during their last year of high school. Without ever acknowledging they know each other in the halls, they steal time to meet in secret, carrying on a passionate, world-altering affair. Dazzlingly rendered in English by Ringwald in her first ever translation, Busson's powerfully moving coming-of-age story captures the eroticism and tenderness of first love and the heartbreaking passage of time. This book is only 149 pages, I saw there. It's very short, and I highly recommend it. It is very, I loved the writing, which I guess could be attributed to Molly Ringwald, since it was translated by her, but it is quite gorgeous, the way that it's written, and it's quite sad. It can be dark, but it's really good if you like that kind of thing and or in the mood for that. It is a bit of a toxic romance, I would say, at times, and I don't know, that was kind of triggering for me a little bit, so pay attention to that, but before you read it, but there wasn't too much of that. It just, if you've had that kind of relationship before, I'm sure it might kind of be uncomfortable to read about, but it's really good. I think I gave it 4 stars, and I'd say I really enjoyed it. I expected to feel even more from the book because a lot of people talk about this one, and they talk about how it made them cry and just made them feel a lot, and it made me feel stuff, but not to that level. So that was Lie With Me. And finally, I read 6 Scorched Roses by Carissa Broadbent. This is a little novella, and it is a novella within the Crowns of Neaxia series, which is a fantasy series. And this story is within that world, but it is about totally different characters. It is another romance. I say another because that's a big part of this series, but this one is different characters, and it's a totally different story from the other 2 books in the series. It is just within that world, and the gist of it is that the romance is between a human girl and a guy who is a vampire. It's a similar story, of course, to Twilight, but it does not feel like that at all. It's quite more, I'd say fantasy, like it's more high-level fantasy feeling, and because, of course, this is set in a fantasy world, whereas Twilight is, like, within the human world that we know. So it's not like Twilight at all. A lot of people really like this novella. I didn't like it as much as some other people do. I gave it 3 stars, and I just found it alright. I liked that it was so quick, and I really love Carissa Broadbent's writing. It's very fast-paced and easy to read, while also being, like, interesting. But I just didn't end up caring about the characters or what was happening. Yeah, I'm not quite sure why. Maybe if it was not a novella and it was longer, I would have liked it more. But, I think that if you enjoy this series, or even just the first book, I would suggest reading it. I think that because I didn't love it, that doesn't mean you wouldn't love it, especially if you loved the first book. So I would still check it out and recommend it. But, yeah, I didn't love it. Enjoyed it, but didn't love it. So that was the final book that I read in December, and for 2023 as a whole. Overall, December was a pretty good month. I am super excited for the books I'm going to be reading for the rest of January, and for the whole year. I think I'm going to make a video talking about the books that I'm most excited for in 2024. Let me know if you would like to see that. And yeah, I'd say overall I'm going to try this year to read more books from authors I know I like, and doing a little bit less of like exploration and just trying to read as many books as I can, and just focusing more on trying my best to read books that I know I'll like, and yeah, just focusing on authors a little bit more, I'd say. So, thank you for watching another reading wrap-up video. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if you did, and I hope to see you guys again very, very soon.